What's up, everyone? I have an exciting episode for you. It's been a long time since I recorded one of these updates, and I hope to do this more regularly. The last time I did this was my 2023 year in review, which is like almost 2 years ago now. You can go back and watch that in the podcast archives. It's actually not on YouTube. But I want to just share a bit of an update about the business going into Q4 2025. Share some updates about some exciting stuff that's happening, and then we can kind of work backwards from there to explain the thinking behind it so that you can maybe apply that to your business. Okay, so two big updates at the top, and then I'll kind of explain the thinking behind them after the fact. All right, so first update, and this is a really, really important announcement. It may come as a shock to some of you, but on October 1st, which is in about 10 days, I am going to be shutting down what I am arguably most known for, which is How to Work Less. And if you don't know what How to Work Less is, it is the system that I built as a result of me solving my own problems. So if you don't know, I ran a design agency for over a decade. And during that process, I went from not charging enough, being burnt out, working too much, to kind of realizing that there might be a better way to run one of these lean one-person businesses with just like a small team. And that process turned from the old version of my business to a $500,000 a year business where I was only working 10, 15 hours a week. So as a result of that experience, and over the course of a lot of iteration and working with clients, honing the system, I turned How to Work Less, or I turned my business into what became How to Work Less. And over the last 3 years, I worked with hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs of all types, helping them to transform their business as a result of the course. And it was amazing. I mean, really, really amazing. But I'm sad to report that time is over. Time is up. So you probably have some questions about this. I'll be happy to kind of explain thinking behind it. But the first question that most people would probably think is, why shut down something that works? You know, you built this thing, it helps people, it makes money, like all good stuff. Why shut it down? Well, it's the opposite of what you might think. And the reason that I'm shutting How to Work Less down is because I'm so confident in the principles behind it that I'm actually taking the underlying intellectual property behind How to Work Less and turning it into a new business. Okay, this is going to be a business that is less reliant on me as a person. So it's going to be kind of elevating the principles and the thinking behind it. And as a result, I'm going to be building new products that align with this. So I guess you could consider it How to Work Less 2.0, but I really see it as like the next phase of the business. Okay, so I'll have more to share on that soon. But what you need to know is, you know, while How to Work Less as it exists now is going away forever, the work is just beginning and is really more of a doubling down than anything else. But what it does mean is probably the product that I'm most proud of building, that is really transformed hundreds and hundreds of businesses, is going away forever in about 10 days. October 1st is the last day that you can buy it. It's really been quite a cool journey. It's been tested and validated live. I taught this thing live 6 times over the course of 2 years. And every time that I taught it, I tweaked things, I got better, I kind of, heard feedback, adjusted. And honestly, it's like really freaking good. So I want to give you a last chance, if you'd like, to hop into How to Work Less before it goes away forever. Because How to Work Less was so great, it was on the higher price point. It was $3,000. But if you want it, I want you to be able to access it before it goes away. So I've got an offer for you here. From now until October 1st, which is the last day that it'll be available, the entire How to Work Less product, okay, retails for $3,000, is available for $500. But even more interesting, on top of that, you will get the first new Work Less product that I release for free whenever it drops. So not only can you get started basically today if you want, whenever you watch this, for $500, the next version, the next product, my newest thing, is going to be available for you for free if you pick it up. Okay? I'm not sure how much the new thing is going to cost yet, but I guarantee you will be happy that you picked up How to Work Less for $500 and are getting that for free as well. Okay. And if you are a current How to Work Less customer and you're thinking like, oh, he's shutting it down, like, does that mean I'm not going to get access? Just to let you know, we are not planning on removing access for any of our current How to Work Less clients. Okay. So don't worry about that. It's not going anywhere on the internet, but you will just not be able to buy it anymore. And that is to make space for what's next, which I'm really excited about. Okay. So that's the update. How to Work Less going away October 1st. Grab it while you can. $500. You can check that out at learn.howtoworkless.com or just Google it, type me into the internet, whatever. I'm sure you can figure it out. Okay. So that's update number 1. On the heels of that, I want to share another update that is coming down the pipeline, which will launch pretty soon after How to Work Less closes its doors for good. And I am going to be starting a Substack called Inner Entrepreneur. And I gotta say, every time I tell people this, I feel like is honestly like one of the least cool things ever to tell someone you're starting a Substack. And the reason being is I feel like it's the 2025 equivalent of, hey guys, I'm starting a podcast, and we know how I'm starting a podcast generally goes, 5 to 8 episodes and then it's gone forever. And I feel like that happens a lot with Substack as well. I know a ton of people have started them, moved on, didn't feel alignment with it. But I have a demonstrated track record of doing stuff. I've been writing Work Less Wednesday for, whatever, we're almost at 150 issues, it's like almost 3 years. So I don't take it lightly when I say I'm starting something new. So the thinking behind this is, recently I've been sharing some more of my writing online based on what I've been seeing working really closely with entrepreneurs, one-on-one and in my group container, the lab. And I'm sensing a need for a big missing piece of the puzzle that actually really interlocks with the practical stuff that I offer in How to Work Less. And you'll see more about that when I launch it. I'm going to share the first piece. So it'll launch in October, the first week of October. I already have a month's worth of content, and you'll see how that ripples out over the internet in the coming weeks. But if you're on my email list, just so you know, you'll probably get an email from me through Substack. It'll be called Inner Entrepreneur. I would appreciate it if you give it a chance to read it. If you don't, it'll just say, hey, Rich is inviting you to the Substack. If you're not interested, just hit unsubscribe. Totally get it. But it'll be called Inner Entrepreneur, and the focus is going to be on mindset and the internal aspects of entrepreneurship, and how that pertains to running an awesome business that you love that makes a bunch of money and feels really aligned. And I'll explain how I got to that conclusion in a bit. But that's the second announcement. So after this How to Work Less grand finale wraps up, that'll be the next thing to come down the pipeline. And then the next Work Less product will be on the tails of that as well. So a lot of exciting stuff going on. Substack wise, I was talking about this with my clients. For now, the content will be free. I don't have any plans to make it paid, but who knows? Maybe I will. I guess it'll just really depend on the level of resonance. And historically, I've not really been someone who's super excited about selling things for super cheap, single digit prices. But that could change. There is a bit of a shift going on in the business. But I don't know. For now, it's gonna be free. So enjoy. All right. So those are the two announcements. How to Work Less going away forever, October 1st. Substack coming out soon after that. Those may be interesting to you if you know me well and you've been following me for a while. But if you haven't and you're still here, what I hope will be interesting to you is how I came to these two decisions. Because it's one thing to say, oh, okay, you're doing these things, you're making these moves. like you're looking at the end point. But I think it's more interesting to talk about how you got to the end point. And I'm going to explain how I came to these two decisions and how they actually make sense fitting together, and how I'm thinking about the business. Okay. So one of the big themes that I have been exploring, and has been extremely significant is this theme of staying close to the work. That has played out for me in that over the last 2 years, I have had the privilege to work very, very, very closely with like 70, 75 entrepreneurs. Some in a group capacity called the lab, some in one-on-one consulting. And when I say really closely, I mean like really closely. Okay. I could tell you their clients, their team members, how much money they make, how much amount of money they have in the bank account, what they need to be focusing on right now, like what they're doing that they should, what they're doing that they shouldn't be doing, what they're not doing that they should be doing, all those things. Like it's been awesome. Probably like fueled more of anything that I've created, than anything else, and is really like the nexus for all these business decisions. The beauty of staying close to the work, and everyone will have their own version of it, but I challenge you, or I encourage you to ask yourself, like, do you have a place in your business where you can stay close to the work? Like, if you're a designer, do you have a place in your business where you are designing, right? Like in a meaningful way, not just sitting there like push pixels, like actually doing something that is fulfilling, because you want to take those deep insights and then bring them out like into the market and fuel your business. So if I wasn't doing this, if I wasn't staying close to the work, it would be very difficult for me to see the signal versus the noise in terms of these business decisions, which I think is why, like, a lot of times if you end up with like, kind of just like copying, pasting, business stuff from someone, which there's nothing wrong with like taking business ideas or systems from another person. The problem that I see is when you take them or borrow them without understanding the underlying thinking and seeing if it aligns all the way down. Anyway, so the beauty of staying close to the work is that I have a very deep level of understanding about what entrepreneurs need. And I was really never able to get to this level of depth in 4 weeks of mentorship in the cohorts with How to Work Less. Okay. So the beauty of this is that this work basically is like an incubator, which is feeding the stuff that I'm writing, the content that I'm creating, and these new products and business that I'm working on. Okay. So that's the benefit, right? It all comes from this like close mentorship. Okay. Just like limitless ideas, really. So along with that, seeing this staying close to the work as a fuel, I kind of decided to build from there. And last year I shared on a YouTube video how my word of 2024 was alignment. And in a YouTube video, I've talked about this everywhere. I shared my story about how I'm a person in long-term recovery from addiction. It's been 14 years. I shared that with my clients, and it really helped kind of like align everything in my life and business. Really from going from this like fragmented work-life situation to more of an integrated thing. And for me personally, that was just like a massive unlock in terms of creativity, energy, how well I could serve my clients, how well the business was doing, all this stuff. So as I'm making this update and as I was thinking through, like, okay, I've been working closely with these clients. I'm seeing a lot of things, seeing opportunities where my business can be more closely aligned with what I'm seeing with the clients, and how I can help people better, and at a larger scale. And I was like, okay, well, like, how can I create alignment from the top down and from the bottom up? And what I mean by that is the connection between the mission of the business itself. So like, what are the offers? Like, how is the business structured? And then all the way down to like my day. Okay. And how do I spend my time, and how can I structure so that there's alignment between my like ideal day, the business that is, being fueled by that work, and then the larger mission, and seeing how all three of those layers are connected. Okay, so on the mission side of things, we'll start top down and then we'll work backwards to the day. In terms of the mission and the shift, I have a new kind of informal mission for my business. This is what I've been working with kind of internally and asking myself, like, okay, are we headed towards this? Which is creating entrepreneurial tools for internal and external growth. And you'll see the connection here. I'm seeing in my clients and in my market and just like talking to a lot of business owners, this need for like both the internal and the external tools. Because what I see is like a lot of people that have a stronger business foundation actually tend to really struggle with the internal stuff. So maybe they can kind of act and they can put their head down and they can go and they can go. But at a certain point, I talk about this in the idea of the success thermostat. At a certain point, it's the internal issues that block them from reaching the next level. So they're like, go, go, go. And then all of a sudden they're stuck. Okay. And then on the other side of things, people who maybe spent more time with the internal work first tend to struggle with the practical side of business. Okay. So that they don't have like a stabilizing framework for how to think through business decisions and how to show up in their business and how to structure it that feels really aligned to them. Then there's plenty of people who need both, right? They need the internal work and they need the external work. And they need a framework that can help them kind of link them both and bring them into harmony. Okay, so my goal is to kind of create businesses, help people make businesses that not only like serve a ton of people and make a bunch of money, but also support internal alignment. So they like feel good, and help entrepreneurs kind of take their business and use it as a path of self-discovery and self-growth. So what that means is I'm going to be building more tools for entrepreneurs that are covering both the external business systems, right? The frameworks behind it, the thinking, and the internal mindset work stuff, bringing it all together. So what you'll see is that is a combination of more practical tools like what you saw in How to Work Less with internal development tools. And that is kind of the overarching mission, which will then trickle down into the business, which is like, well, what do we sell here? Like what are the offers? Like how does everything work? The marketing, the sales, the fulfillment, right? Your traditional business stuff. And then backwards to like the ideal day. Okay. So from the mission to the business, what that's going to look like business wise for me is obviously continuing to stay close to the work. That is very, very small number of high touch one-on-one clients, staying close to the work, high price, high leverage, like working really deeply together. Not a ton of people, like very few. And then more accessible proximity to me in the form of the lab, which is my kind of like group container for working together in that capacity. And that's not going anywhere. And then there will be tools. Okay, so more coming on that soon, but it'll be more products, new things that support this internal and external alignment. So you'll see more things from the work less side of the business, which that's just the name that I'm using, as well as more of this like the inner entrepreneur side of the business. And you'll see how they all fit together kind of harmoniously. And then the writing, right? Creating things that share this message and this kind of philosophy and way of running a business with the world is the other. Okay, so we have the mission, we have the business. Well, at the end of the day, if you're running a one-person business or you're a founder, the biggest bottleneck is always going to be your time and energy, right? And your happiness too. So all of this stuff is great, but if your day is not structured in a way that feels both challenging and fulfilling and is something that you could really commit to and feel good about, it's going to be tough. Okay. So working backwards from the ideal day also means like, okay, how can we build these things in a way that's sustainable, right? And feels good. So for me, like 5 hours a day, I don't really like there'll be days where I can grind it out for longer than that, but I find that 5 hours, if I'm really locked in, which is what I try to do, like I want to be spending as much time like focus deeply as possible and as little light tasks as I can, whether that is deep work or working with clients. So practically that's like 3 hours of deep work a day, which is some combination of writing, creating new things, like working with ideas, and then the client work, which is staying close to the work, being of service, 2 hours a day on average. So give or take some combination of the deep work, the writing, and the client work just feels really good for this season of the business for me, and is going to allow me to both get the business goals that we're looking for, get the mission goals that I'm looking for. And you'd be surprised to learn, and like, listen, you can move the needle pretty significantly with the leverage that's available on the internet in 5 hours if you are spending your time on the right tasks, if you have systems, if you have delegation, if you have the right support. All the stuff I talk about in How to Work Less, by the way. It's really about how you spend your time and doing it intentionally. Okay. So there you go. Something worth thinking about. Mission to business to ideal day. How can we make sure that all three of those layers are in alignment? Okay, last thing I want to say about all of this, which is a shift, but you'll see this, right? You'll see how maybe there's a shift in how I show up, or at least the amount that I show up, based on this final move. And I think, I was talking with one of my buddies, Patrick, great entrepreneur, Patrick McAndrew, and I was explaining to him these, like what I was thinking, and he described it this way, and I think I didn't really see it when I explained it, but he's spot on, which is shifting from like leverage to scale. And you can take whatever negative connotations or positive connotations you have about both those words out of your brain. I'll explain what I mean by them. Because I think for a lot of people, like scaling has very weird connotations. Like maybe even sometimes like, oh, it's like unethical or whatever to scale, or you're gonna have to like work really hard and it's gonna be really painful. And I'll explain what I mean by this. Okay. So for the longest time in my business, the main focus was leverage. That's what How to Work Less is all about. It is about charging the most money for the least amount of work. So in How to Work Less, the main principle that ties everything together that you can always come back to is this idea of the EHR, or the effective hourly rate, and how you can move the numerator and the denominator, okay, so money and time, in order to design the business that you want, and that being kind of the main variable that you work around. And that's a great way. Like it's a great way to run a business, especially if you're one person and you want to optimize for profit. It's also a really good way to get clarity on what's really important to you. But having run, a lot of like leveraged businesses as the top priority, now that I have this clarity, it's going to be more about like moving from leverage to scale and reaching more people. So let's take How to Work Less, for instance. Incredible product. If you go on the page, like, and scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can just read like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reviews of how helpful. Like basically every person who took it really, really loved it. I can't really think of many exceptions. But the one thing that I'll say is, because How to Work Less was optimized for price at a $3,000 price point for basically a 4-week program. So on the higher end, not like the most expensive, but like expensive. It only reached those who could afford it. So we were like optimizing for charge the most amount of money, right? And it reached those who were farther along in their business journey, who could afford that, and it helped them immensely. Okay. And don't get me wrong, like I still strongly encourage the philosophy of scale with price. I'll always have scale with price offerings, which are these like high ticket one-on-one working together. But for me, I think there's also a piece of the business where it's making sense to stop optimizing purely for leverage and move to impact as well. Okay. And what I mean by scale is not, it's time to scale the business. Let's go to 8 figures. Let's I don't know, buy an office building and get a bunch of employees and stuff like that. I don't mean that at all. Okay. What I mean is by scaling the number of people who are exposed to these ideas that I have and these philosophies. And I've just worked with enough people who were not exposed to them. And I've seen how much pain that causes, not necessarily having clarity and having a path forward for their business, where I feel more confident than ever that it would benefit a lot of people to be exposed to these ideas, both on the internal and external side of things. Okay. So now that these principles are becoming more refined, I want them to be more accessible. All right. So yeah, what that's going to look like you'll see the end result. It'll probably just be you'll probably see my face more maybe than you did before. More interesting formats. The idea is get this information out to more people so that they can engage with it in a way that feels cool and accessible. Because like I said, I'm staying close to the work. Okay. So that's basically it. That's what I've got going on. So going into Q4, I pretty much already know exactly how it's going to play out. For the most part, things could totally shift. I'm always open to shifts. Planning wise, how to work less for the next 10 days is available for $500. Then it's going away forever. You'll see what I've got planned in terms of the new stuff after that. The following week after How to Work Less is done, Inner Entrepreneur will come out, which I hope you're going to really enjoy. And then I have probably 2 exciting new other things to share between the end of this year and January, the start of January. So I've got something that I want to align with the start of the new year and something between now and the end of the year as well. Okay. So a lot on the horizon, really excited about all this stuff. How to Work Less, it's going away. Okay. So final plug for How to Work Less. If you've been staying here this long and you haven't already become a student, I know a lot of people that are listening to this have probably already taken it, which is great. Love you. What's coming next will be great as well. Final plug. Okay. So if you go to learn.howtoworkless.com, or probably just look at any of my links in my bios, you can grab How to Work Less for $500. I've never sold it for this price ever. Retailed for $3,000. Okay. And it goes away forever, permanently locked in the vault. Okay. On October 1st, you will never be able to get this product again. Okay. So it's basically a fit for you if you don't really know. If you're self-employed, a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, you've already got a business. You don't need to be making $1 million, but if I'm not going to teach you how to start a business and how to work less, just so you know. Okay. So if you're selling services, coaching, marketing, consulting, etc. Also, it is for you if you want a business optimized for profit. Okay. If you're running a startup, I'm not going to get as much out of it. There are productivity principles and prioritization frameworks and stuff that would be useful. But generally speaking, this is optimizing for profit business solo. So you plus a tiny team. I just worked with contractors when I was running my agency. I was doing $500,000 a year. We have students that have gone all the way up to 7 figures using these principles. But if your goal is to figure out a way to work less, scale your business without working more hours, build systems to run your business without you, and get all of that packaged in a framework that feels really good, that's for you. Okay. I'll be sharing more soon on all of this. If you are on my email newsletter, you'll probably see some of the future updates. And I will try to do another one of these business updates in, I guess, Q1 2026. All right, folks, that's everything. Talk soon.